they're looking for a cameo. I've got more reviews than any other athlete on the planet, 3 times more. Honestly, I think I try 3 times harder than most of them do. So I don't, anyway, I don't go through the motions. They can check out my reviews for themselves at cameo.com/Mick Foley.
Hello and welcome to Here's the Pitch, and I'm here to tell you, of course, I'm your YouTube friend Brad, and I'll be talking a lot more here in the future about side hustle and passive income. And that's what I started this show today with Mick Foley, talking about how he does a side hustle with his Cameo page. But everyone has a side hustle. Everyone is doing some sort of passive income work. Believe it or not, this venture right here is me working to do some passive income. And throughout the next couple weeks, I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks that I did to get my YouTube channel up to almost 15,000 subscribers, and we're going to continue to do that. I'll talk about using keywords and SEO and the descriptions and the tags and how I kind of got it all to work together to become the channel that is you've come here to enjoy. Hopefully you've enjoyed the content you've seen. We are kind of taking a shift and moving to different type of guests. Hopefully you've enjoyed the guests you've seen here, but I think if you're interested in passive income and side hustles, I'm going to be bringing you all that kind of good information with people who have done this in their career. So that's a little teaser. You'll be seeing some more videos this week coming out, and I will be doing some more explanations of my goals here. But today it's a best of Ric Flair and Mick Foley. Again, both of them with many side hustles. Of course, Ric Flair does many side hustles. He does commercials, and Mick Foley does a tour, goes out on tour. And a lot of people have requested to see these interviews again. I've kind of shortened them down. So let's start with the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Woo! I said to some of my friends, you know, to be interviewing one guy, his name's Ric Flair. They said one thing. Woo!
All right.
Woo! Oh, where did that come from? When did you start doing that?
The first time I heard the record, Great Balls of Fire by Jerry Lee Lewis. So I got it truthfully.
Yeah?
Yeah, I probably started doing that in about 1968.
Now that's something you've done all through your career.
I was a junior in high school, yeah.
Why wrestle? Why pick this career? Obviously, it's set your family up, but a lot of these guys right now, there's tons of little independent leagues that they'll be there forever. Why did you pick this?
Why did I pick wrestling as a career? Well, I was playing football at University of Minnesota, and just quite honestly, I became academically ineligible. Ended up sitting around for a year and trying to decide what I wanted to do. And I was at that time pretty close friends with a young man by the name of Greg Gagne, whose father was Vern Gagne, one of the great legends of our sport. And at that time, not only a promoter, but the reigning AWA World Heavyweight Champion. And through a process of time and getting to meet Vern and all that, Vern agreed to train me at the same time that he was training Chris Taylor, who was an Olympian, and Ken Patera, who also was an Olympian, and several other guys. We all started together in 1973 and spent a year with them, and then I moved to Charlotte in 1974 and never looked back.
And St. Louis is a town where, I mean, wrestling is one of the hot spots. You guys know about the Chase.
The hottest spot. Sure, I wrestled at the Chase.
Talk about those days, because a lot of people from St. Louis say the wrestling at the Chase days were the best.
It was phenomenal. It was just it was a live show that was produced on Sunday morning at the Chase, and it's hard to explain the evolution of wrestling, but I mean, some of the greatest stars to ever come along, from Dick the Bruiser to Pat O'Connor, Lou Thez. I mean, every big name player came through here, and Bill Longston and Wilbur Snyder, Vern Gagne. When I first started, they always said that if you ever wanted to be a marquee guy and be considered a big player, you had to headline a card at the Kiel Auditorium, which meant you were wrestling at the Chase, because that's how the two worked together.
Talk about your work on the mic. I mean, was that something that you knew that if I'd work on the mic, that people will get to know me a lot better? Because I think right now people know the sayings that you have. I mean, to be the best, you got to be the best.
Yeah.
I mean, the sayings that you say.
Yeah, quite honestly, I just came by that naturally. I've never worked on the mic at all. Sometimes when I'm driving on the road, I think about things I might say on TV, but I play off the crowd, and if the crowd is hot, it energizes me, and that's basically how I get where I'm going.
Talk about, we'll do these real quick. Favorite opponent and guy you hate to wrestle. Your favorite and the guy you hate.
Well, my favorite opponent right now would probably be, gosh, there's 2 or 3 guys that I can really burn the joint down with. But Sting, usually when I wrestle Sting, you can, I don't mind. I'm class right now. I'm wrestling Hogan a fair amount and enjoy wrestling him. The best opponent I've ever had in my life would be a guy named Ricky Steamboat. But had a lot of great matches with Harley Race, who's the Kansas City guy, and least favorite opponent, guy, there's about 14 guys who used to beat me on a regular basis, so I guess it's hard to pick out one.
It's 14. And I gotta ask you, can you pick
13.
Talk about the 3 favorite lines. What are your 3 favorite lines that you've, and I don't know if
To be the man, baby, you gotta beat the man, and right now I'm the man. I am a limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, son of a gun that has kissed all the girls in St. Louis and made them cry. Unless you want to hear it. Girls, there isn't one of you that could be first, but any number of you could be next. I don't know. What else do you want to hear?
You could go on for hours and I could listen to this.
I don't know how to even really start this conversation. It's Dude Love, it's Mankind, it's Cactus Jack, it's Mick Foley. Oh my goodness. Holy Foley, there you are. So my first question, I'm going to go all over, nothing in order, but the first thing I thought about was winning the title on Raw, obviously a tape match. Maybe people didn't know that, but it was taped when you won that. What was that night like and the next ensuing days as you came home, you held the title, there was no events until Raw aired. What was that like, the anticipation knowing that this was going to air? Because usually it's in the moment. It's at a pay-per-view. It's live. Yeah. But people probably don't even get the sense that these things were taped. So this show is taped. We already know that what Tony Schiavone and Eric Bischoff are up to over there. But tell me what it was like those days as you leave that arena in Worcester. You take the belt home, I assume, with the family, and just that anticipation, knowing what the world is going to see that first Monday in January of '99.
Yeah, well, first, I think I'll go down in history as the only guy who tried to talk Mr. McMahon out of giving me, having me win the WWE title. I swear when I said, I don't think that's a good idea. I just, in my mind, I saw Dwayne Johnson scouting the area for a little plant for Ashton Kutcher to come jumping out of and say he's been punked because nobody thinks it's not a good idea for them to win the WWE title. But Mr. McMahon said he thought it would only enhance the rivalry with me and The Rock. And so I grudgingly agreed. And man, when I won that title, I felt like I had wings. I ran a surprisingly good clip for a guy of my size around the ring a few times, had a huge celebration and ring. And then, like you said, I've got to bring it home, not let my children know their dad's the champion. And wow, they were allowed to stay up till 11 p.m. every Monday night because it was Raw night. And they were so happy and they were celebrating. I broke out the title. To this day, I've got photos of the kids, parading around the living room with the title. And then after this great moment in my life, I watched the replay of WCW, and that's where they gave away not only gave away the ending, but kind of, ran me down in the process, And I mean, Tony knows what he said. I just saw him last weekend, and we laughed about it. And it's funny because he's got a comic book series called Butts and Seats, taken directly from his comment where he said, we know that Mick Foley wrestled here as Cactus Jack is going to win their title. And he said, that'll put butts in seats. And then even worse, like he was hawking a loogie, to the side of the table. And it was a downer for me that night until I found out what the ratings were. And the ratings showed such a tale that as soon as Tony had given away the ending, instead of keeping people from going to WWE, I think 500,000 people switched over almost immediately and stayed there until I won the title, at which point they switched back to see what was going on at the end of Nitro, because Nitro had a show that people wanted to see. They had 48,000 people in the Georgia Dome. I think they had Goldberg versus Nash or Goldberg versus Hogan, one of those marquee matches. And when they gave away the finish, people just wanted to see that victory. I guess they thought I deserved it.
It's such a great moment. And then I think also that night is the loudest Stone Cold pop. I mean, and it wasn't for one of his matches. And I think, when you think back, it's probably, oh man, Stone Cold has to be part of this. But I think the fans wanted you to win that night. And when they knew that he was coming, that meant, wait a minute, Mankind might win. This might have, if Stone Cold's coming down, he's not coming down to help The Rock. It's such a pop.
Right. He came down to help me, and then that just enhanced their story going into WrestleMania, because Rock and I finished with a really, we had a wild and woolly empty arena match that aired during the Super Bowl, and then I think a couple weeks after that, I lost the title, and then those guys were off to the races. But I thought I did a good job in propelling that storyline, and I thought I was a pretty good short-term champion, what we call a transitional champion.
I love that too, because then I never even realized that was a thing until it became a thing, when people started mentioning it, that you needed someone to lose that title so someone could be the winner of it. You needed a heel to go into WrestleMania so that obviously the face could win. I was listening to one of your podcasts. I wanted to kind of just, again, because I know that you've answered these questions a million times, but I heard you say that there's a point at the end of 97, 98 that you thought that the character was getting stale, and you'd already done the three faces. You did the Rumble where you came in 3 times, which is amazing, as the 3 guys. But I think 1998, just looking at it, it is such to have this many things happen. I'm going to list them and then just maybe talk about a little bit of them. You go in as the 3 faces of Foley through the Rumble. You then turn heel because you have the Austin chants in one of your tag matches, and you turn heel. Your first feud in '98 is with Austin. Now Austin is feuding with McMahon, but he needs a wrestler to go in there and do the dirty. That's you as Dude Love. So now the first guy Austin's doing is you and Dude Love. Then you and then Vince do the dancing and have fun. Then it goes to Hell in a Cell, the Taker. And then McMahon turns on you in Survivor Series. This is an amazing year where you are in the middle of every big storyline with every giant name. And I thought, when I heard you say, well, my character I thought I was burning out. It doesn't sound like it. What a year. When you think of that year?
It was flat going into that match with The Undertaker, because like you said, I've been through a lot. I'd come into the company in 96 as Mankind. Mr. McMahon found out I'd been this Dude Love character, in high school and college. So he allows me to portray Dude Love, allows that dream to come to life, which was great. Now he allows me to become Cactus Jack at Madison Square Garden. Now I'm alternating between doing different guys on different nights, coming in and doing all 3 in one night. And then I went from being Mankind to good Mankind to Dude Love, to bad Mankind, all 3, to bad Mankind, to corporate Mankind, to sell out Dude Love, Cactus Jack, to sell out Dude Love. And it was like, all right, I think I've had enough of this guy. And it wasn't until The Undertaker and I kind of walked our way into the pages of wrestling history that I had to figure out a way for Mankind to connect with the audience without crashing and burning every night. And that's when that character started bringing a lot of humor into the forefront, and people really felt empathetic for the character. And so he was off on a really wild run at that point with Dwayne Johnson through 98 and through the first 3 months of 99.
So again, you've talked about Hell in a Cell probably on every podcast, but it's I guess my question now, I have to think of, again, a good question because you're asked about it all the time. What was your thoughts going into that match? Where did you see it going? Was the first thing going to be you get thrown off the cage and you continue? Or where was your mind at as you're walking, as you're at Gorilla and you're getting ready to go and you guys go up the cage? I know that's part of it, that you guys said, well, let's start at the top of the cage. No one's ever done that. Tell me where your thoughts were with where this match was going to go, and did it go the way you expected?
Well, no, it didn't go the way I hoped it would, but I did. I had an inkling I was going to be thrown off that structure, and I just told Mr. McMahon that if I had the ability to climb off the gurney, I would, and I would climb it again. because I thought that would be a really dramatic. I said, I don't know if I can do it, but if I can, I'm going to go for it. And so when I climbed off that gurney, everyone was just sure the match was over. Nobody had ever seen a match start like that. And nobody would have said, we got ripped off if it was only a 20-second match, because they'd never seen anything like that in their lives. Like, I think in boxing, MMA, some of the greatest matches were startling, quick knockouts. We don't have that same advantage because we almost have to have a good match for people to think they got their money's worth. But every once in a while, you can throw a little swerve, change the way people look at things. And if I had not gotten off that stretcher, I think a lot of people would still remember that moment. But coming off it, climbing up, having the structure collapse on us, which neither one of us saw coming, and then essentially try to put the pieces back together when I was not conscious, that takes some doing. Now, it should be said that if that same type of thing happened today, it'd stop the match, right? And that's the smart move, the wise move with the knowledge we have about head injuries, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. But at that time, you didn't stop matches in WWE. You just bought time. So that's what happened when I hit the canvas and I was knocked out. You had about 7, 8 guys hit the ring to buy me time. And so we did. We put the pieces back together on live television. It was pretty captivating.
And I mean, it's something that's lived on forever. I'm sure you're proud of that you hear JR's call. It is, I don't even know what the word is. It's just one of the most amazing moments of all of wrestling history. So congrats. How many concussions? I know we weren't doing concussion safety back then, but what do you think? How many times were you knocked out? I mean, if you're knocked out, I'd assume that's a concussion.
I was only knocked unconscious twice. I thought I had 8 diagnosed concussions, but a lot of moments where I saw stars. I didn't know that was a head injury. I just thought that meant the move looked good. That was my inkling. That must have looked good as I see stars. We didn't really know back then. We're talking 25 years ago. So I definitely overdid things, did my very best to make everything look good. And the way you ensure that it looks good is that it's got to, make that kind of impact to make it look good. There's other ways to do it, but that was one surefire way to know stuff looked good as if it hurt. And then, of course, we add some, a little pomp and circumstance and come up with professional wrestling. But I probably pushed the envelope too far, not knowing, what we know now.
Do you think, and this is I'm not being silly, do you think you have like a special body and a special head? Because there's no one could do this. I mean, it really was everyone, Ric Flair kind of made fun of you being a stuntman, but this was a skill to do this every night and be able to walk, and you still walk, and you still have you obviously have your.
Well, I was paying the price for it big time, for a number of years. And then 4 years ago, I had my right hip replaced, which should have been replaced 10 years earlier. Because I could barely get around. I was hardly functional. Then my right knee, because the right knee caused me so much pain, it throbbed at night. I didn't know it was locked in a position where I couldn't straighten it. Then that throws everything off when you can't straighten your leg out. And so one leg is, essentially 3 inches longer than the other one. It starts throwing everything you do off. And, of course, I've struggled with my weight too, because that was always like my compensation, that was how I relieved the pain, was to, eat something unhealthy, but quite tasty. And I have to admit that I don't have that excuse as to why I picked up so many LBs during the pandemic, only that I was single-handedly trying to keep 12 local businesses going with my orders. So I've got that going for me.
What's most painful? Thumbtacks, barbed wire, chair shots? What when you're going into a match, which one goes, shit, I don't want to do that tonight?
The most dangerous to me was always the no rope barbed wire matches where the barbed wire was strung up, because you can land on a bale of it, and you can get hit with it, and it all hurts, but it's a calculated risk, whereas barbed wire that's strung up can catch and tear you. And I've been caught and torn, nearly lost my good ear when I got 15 stitches behind it in the famous Kawasaki Dream Match tournament. I saw Sabu. I think it was 100 stitches he needed afterwards. And you could see he just got his manager throw him in a roll of athletic tape, and he wrapped it up while he was wrestling until afterwards. So, yeah, there's some really bad injuries that can hurt you in a hurry when the ropes go down and the wire goes up. Because it's like Mr. Miyagi said, you stand on one side of the road, you're fine. You stand on the other side, you're fine. But you stand in the middle, you get squashed just like a grape. So if you either do those matches or you don't do them, but you don't do them halfway. So you do them halfway, they look awful, and you get hurt even worse. So you almost have to conquer that wire to let it know that you're its daddy, if that makes any sense. Yeah, I don't know if it has feelings, but fear it too much and it'll rip you wide open.
You mentioned that you have to do it full. You just, one of your last tweets was Hulk Hogan's massive chair shot to Conan. I mean, it was just clearly he was banging him as hard as he possibly could.
Like, I probably shouldn't have put that up there, as I like Hulk, and he was a much bigger drawing card than I ever was. But it was just funny, I see this not for the squeamish. And I'm the type of guy, like last night I was watching the great ESPN E60 on Smith, the quarterback,
Alex Smith.
Alex Smith, who had that horrible injury. And I can't even look at the injuries. Like, I can't watch someone's leg breaking in half. And so I don't even know why I ventured on, okay, let me see this sickening chair shot. And then it was so funny because it was the furthest thing from that. It's just something hopefully everyone involved with smiles at. It's not me taking a shot at Hulk, because I've done some stuff that didn't look particularly good, and that's open to, tweeting and posting as well.
You would have had a good match with him, though. He bled. He hit some.
One of my regrets is I didn't stick around TNA longer. Hulk and I had a dramatic face-off in the ring, and I was thinking, we could have a match. We could have a match. I'm not saying it wouldn't be methodical, in its pacing. That's slow by most people's standards. But I think we would have told a really good story going into it. I think we would have told a good story in the match, and I think it would have been a lot of fun and a success from a financial standpoint.
You mentioned it. I took it off my list of questions, but TNA, I was always wondering why that never really did just take off, kind of the way AEW is, and maybe it's because of a Tony Khan versus the ownership. But you guys had a lot of big stars. You had AJ. You had the young guys that were coming up. What are your thoughts? Just what happened there? Why it never really?
We did. We had a ton of talent. I would say we had more name talent on our card than WWE did up and down the card. They had 5, 6, 7 huge names. But I think if you looked, I remember talking to Mr. McMahon when they had their Elimination Chamber, and outside of like 4 to 6 guys, I knew we had, me and Hogan and Scott, Kevin Nash, Booker, Scott Steiner, Kurt Angle, Christian. Like, there were like 8 to 10, big names from WWE. But WWE is the Jello branded gelatin of sports entertainment. Most people weren't even aware there was a Knox flavored gelatin. But I'd say that's what AEW has done. They've managed to let people know there's a new flavored gelatin in town. And for whatever, it looks very much like a grassroots effort. They've done a lot of the things that people thought hurt TNA, bringing in a lot of WWE talent, but they're developing a lot of their own, just like TNA did. I think a big difference is the decision not to tape the show, at a studio. It was real hard to get genuine emotion there in that studio at Universal Studios, because people were basically coming in to get away from the heat, air conditioning. They didn't know they were in for a 3-hour taping. And so you had either tired theme park fans, tired theme park attendees, or you had people who showed up every other week and literally had seen everything. And, you can't show up on a Tuesday or a Thursday if you're, working full time. I mean, there are some exceptions, obviously, with work hours, but you didn't have a lot of families there. You had a lot of the same people. And we're glad to have them. We're big fans, but it just wasn't an environment where you need a special element in the air to make something really memorable, no matter how good it is. And make no mistake about it, there was some great wrestling in TNA, but I think there were too many other things that hurt the product, and so those moments didn't really stand out.
Yeah, I think what you say that, I think about just this last 2 weekends ago, CM Punk coming out to 17,000 in an AEW ring. I mean, that shows you that this is for real. And the crowd was just, ape shit. It seems like this is a real momentum type thing going on over there. I just want to get your thoughts on. I don't know if Monday Night Wars are ever going to be the way they were because it was just a totally different time, but there's definitely real competition this time, it feels like. And just your thoughts on what
I think so. I do remember one of our talents being at a football game and being asked about the competition. He said, there is no competition. We have to compete with each other, SmackDown and Raw. And now that gentleman, who was a huge star, is with AEW. And I think he would argue now AEW definitely is competition. But we always did our best when we had competition. I think it's just human nature that you don't run as fast if no one's chasing you. And I think we feel, we meaning WWE, probably feel them at our heels a little bit, which is good.
I was curious. So when we talk about kind of the way WWE was now versus back then, you had to really sort of just sell yourself and give that push of Cactus Jack and Mankind. Stone Cold had to go from the corporate $1 million champion and just sort of be himself. The Rock was being booed out of the building and just sort of let his personality. But it was really, those guys kind of, him, Triple H, just sort of pushing that out there and making it, hey, I'm going to be a star. Whereas the Roman Reigns and the Seth Rollins, they got pushed down your throat, but didn't really kind of get out of character. I don't know what I'm trying to say is that you guys sort of pushed your own selves, where I felt like management now pushes their own guys. Am I right about that? Is that possibly why it's hard to push a Roman Reigns until now, where he's doing something that is clearly he really enjoys? Am I kind of on the right path here with that? That when management tries to kind of push it down your throat, it's not going to work.
I don't know. It was a different type of feel, because anyone who go to house shows would tell you that Roman was over like $1 million, but you weren't getting the casual fans or the families on Sunday nights and Monday nights at tapings, because children can't stay up that late. So these guys were getting phenomenal reactions at the house shows. I remember my children went, they were so surprised at Big Show to get a huge babyface reaction, even though he was a heel on TV. But he was a familiar name. He was such a beloved character. A lot of people don't tune in every week and didn't realize, he's done an 18th character turn. He's just a beloved guy from the show, and people, they really got behind Roman. Now, of course, when you go to a Sunday, Monday night, you're dealing with a lot of people willing to pay a lot of money to sit up close, make the signs, boo the heck out of him. And he wasn't an anti-hero like the in-style babyface was, but he's doing some of his best work now. And I think he needed to get the fans out of there for a little while, so that he could cut those good promos in a different type of atmosphere during the pandemic, establish himself as a great heel, and he's doing his best work.
There's really no you out there, right? I mean, your style is over. Is that complimentary? Is that good thing? There's no me. Do you take that as a kind of a nice thing? Because really, I can't think of anybody that's going to be doing what you do. It probably won't be allowed, insurance, all these new things that have happened in 20 years.
They're doing it to some extent and over there in AEW. John Moxley loves that style of wrestling. I just did, I don't know if the match has been announced, but I did an interview for an upcoming Wild match that he's got coming up in a couple months. So there are guys out there who still want to do that, and they've got a network willing to let them. I'm sure there would be guys chomping at the bit in WWE if they were allowed to, but that's not in the cards right now.
Did you get a chance to see Ric Flair back in the ring with NWA last night? Any part of that? And
No, who was he in the ring with?
So he did a promo, and it was and NWA is back. I don't know if you know about that. Billy Corgan is.
Oh, NWA, yeah, in the studio. He did that in the studio?
So NWA has done. They set up shop here in St. Louis at the Chase Ballroom, where NWA was big.
The show, right?
Yeah, Empower was the couple nights, and then they're bringing in the guys. But they just had Rick come in, kind of, I think, just to do sort of a promo to kind of bless NWA coming back, and it was emotional and it was fun. And I was curious if you'd saw it, and just curious how much you guys talk, because I know there was some bad blood back in the day, but I think you guys are okay now, right?
Yeah, we're okay. Yeah, we text each other every now and then. And even after my biography aired, where Rick was kind of like devil's advocate, which was great, because if you're going to have somebody kind of questioning your style, it might as well be like the best guy ever, But he said, he said something really complimentary to me. So I did not know he was there. That's good. A guy at his age should be able to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants to do it. And I think being away from WWE allows him to be that guy.
Couple more minutes. I wanted to ask you about the A&E stuff. I think the show with Lost Treasures was so good. I did not expect it to be so great. But I think what I get out of that is, how do you guys lose so much stuff? So how much stuff do you have, and how much stuff do you not have? And what did you keep that was very, sentimental? Because it's, and how does stuff get lost is mostly, I guess by watching the show, you can just see that ends up in a hotel room and the maid. But you had some stuff you were looking for.
A lot of it was guys, once their run was done, they would realize this stuff is just taking up space in storage, or I can give it to someone who would really enjoy it. And sometimes it was for what seemed like a good price at the time. I think when I got $600 or $700 for the Mankind shirt, one of two originals, I thought that was a heck of a price. And it's up to $7,500. So a lot of the stuff I gave away, good stuff, I would give to kids who were who were struggling with medical issues. I was over a buddy of mine's house, and I wrote a nice little Facebook post. I did my Fan Art Friday. It was a friend of mine with cerebral palsy who did such a nice illustration. I didn't know he could do that. I honestly didn't know, based on knowing him for almost 20 years and seeing the difficulty he has, with his hands eating. I never could have guessed he would be able to make such a great painting. But he's got the original Dude Love shirt in a frame on his wall. And I'm like, how much that'd be worth right now? And, there's some things, there's the original Rock and Sock Connection jacket was buried with a young man named Joey Reynolds in West Virginia. The original Mr. Rocco is buried with a young man who died of muscular dystrophy in Staten Island. And so I'm glad if I go to bed thinking, I wish I had given all those things away, it wouldn't speak very well of me, Even my original WWE title, I auctioned it to help one of the guys with their medical bills, and it would probably be worth 10 times what we got for it, 16, 17 years ago.
Well, it was a great show. It was fun watching you do your thing there. Another thing that I thought was fun back in the day was your appearances on Howard Stern. Were you excited that you got to sit next to Fred the Elephant Boy each time? Were you like, oh shit, I just want to promote a book here. I don't need Fred the Elephant Boy next to me.
Sometimes, yeah. My wife was like, I remember one time, Howard was playing like 12 straight minutes of fart sounds, and I'm in the green room, and I know I've got national TV lined up after that, but you can't walk out of Howard Stern. But Howard was great. I loved doing that show. I was on, I think I was the first wrestler. I was on 4 or 5 times. It was always a good time.
The Whack Packers showed up in WWE. Were they big friends of yours when Crackhead Bob? That was a Vince Russo thing, right? He was trying to get the Howard guys. Did you become friendly with all of those guys because you're kind of you're one of their kind of?
No, I would not say that I bonded with Crackhead Bob. Fred the Elephant Boy and his brother were the only wrestling luminaries at my wedding in 1992 because everyone else had a match. So if you ever talk about independent wrestlers, giving up the Foley wedding for a $75 to $100 payday. But that's the way all of us are, you got to do those shows.
What, Fred the Elephant Boy was at your wedding? I did not know that.
Yeah. He sure was. Him and his brother. Yeah.
How do you know them? Just fans?
I met them. I met them on a wrestling trip in 1990, and so like 6 months later, Fred was the key to unlocking the Stern door. And so once I was on, then several wrestlers were on. I think Howard enjoyed having me on there.
Yeah. So books, you have what, 5 autobiographies, 4 kids' books? I'm trying to. How are we doing? We got anything? Who has 5 autobiographies, by the way? And you've written them in the last 20 years. You got a lot of stories.
I've got some stories, and I like to write. And it was a case of diminishing returns. The first one did enormous numbers. Second one did really well. Third one did good. And by the fourth one, it was like, okay, I think it's clear. But I had then this Santa story I wanted to share. I knew going in that's not going to have much of a readership, but people who read it liked it, and I was able to give away, the money I made to children's charities. So it was a nice, and I like the idea of sitting down and writing.
I always get these thoughts of you jumping off a cage or running, and then writing a book. It's just amazing to me to think about that. The Bruiser Brody Dark Side of the Ring was one of my favorites because you never saw him out of character, and to see you out of character is just so interesting. So I'm just enjoying our conversation here. But do you have any heroes like that, Bruiser Brody? Like, who are your guys? I know Superfly.
Yeah, Brody was one of my heroes for sure, which is why I was so glad to do that pilot for Dark Side of the Ring. Big mistake turning down the offer to do all of them, which Jericho now does quite well. But had I known the show was going to be that good on a weekly basis, I would have done it. But I was like, oh man, it's going to be a lot of people dying, and sometimes people do die in those shows. But Brody was one of my heroes. Terry Funk, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Dynamite Kid. They were probably the guys I looked up to the most when I was learning to be a wrestler. Bret Hart. I love the way Bret took punishment. I thought that was the hallmark of a really good wrestler. Flair was a hero of mine. And, as I got involved and found out more, there were other guys. But I'd say those are the top 5 guys I was a huge fan of.
Yeah, when we talked how you've written 5 autobiographies, I think I've seen 8 biographies on you, and each time they're better. The A&E one was spectacular, so as I was thinking about that, there's always more footage, there's always new stories, so I appreciate that you did those, and we're part of that.
When I talked to the director, I was a little hesitant, and I said, hasn't my story already been told? He goes, it has, but I think we have a different way of approaching it, and they did a great job. And so now I'm like, okay, it is one thing to tell people, like, this is what my show, talking about the one-man show, it's going to be about the stories in the book. I'm going to bring them to life. And that was really a successful way of doing it for the 20 years of Hell Tour, because you're showing people that you are not going to be talking about current events or politics. You're going to be talking about wrestling, which is what people want. But like, all right, what haven't I told them? Like, oh, I've got a couple stories I never told, didn't dare tell in my book. And I'm going to let them go. I'm going to let it all hang out. I'm going to connect the dots and not worry about whether somebody may have heard something before. I'll just try to put together the best shows that I can when I'm on the road.
Yeah. So Helium in St. Louis, September 7th and 8th. You've got Springfield, Missouri before that at the Blue Room. You're going to Iowa and Michigan and Wisconsin through September. RealMickFoley.com is his website. You can see those. You can find them on Cameo. I'm guessing they're the best cameos ever.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
I bet. I really enjoyed this. I could spend much more time with you, but what I was thinking is you could tell story. I mean, you really could do some with a match each night. Throughout your career for 20, you could just take a night and talk about a match. I mean, it's amazing to me the run you guys had. So I really enjoyed this time. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Mick? I always let my guests kind of finish off the interview.
No, you've done a really good job of covering it. Didn't feel like it was something I was just giving stock answers to. Well, I believe St. Louis is going to be packed on your back. So thank you in advance for the house, as we say in wrestling.
Well, let's hope so, and I hope to see you there. We'll hopefully catch up, and we'll take a picture, and we'll do something fun with the sock or something. I don't want your sock in my mouth. I know it's a weird thing to ask. Don't do that. No sock in the mouth.
All right, you got it. Thanks a lot.
All right, that's Mick Foley. I thank Mick, and I thank you for watching. So it's Masses Restaurants again, is a sponsor, stlmasses.com. Check them out, and we'll see you next time.